And now, Marc Lamont Hill. Marc, we've been talking about it. He said, the Reverend said, ask for a moratorium as we look at these pictures. They asked for calm, and there is no calm tonight.
No, I mean, there shouldn't be calm tonight. Black people are dying in the streets. We've been dying in the streets for months, years, decades, centuries. I think there can be resistance to oppression, and when resistance occurs, you can't circumscribe resistance. You can't schedule a planned resistance. You can't tell people where to die in, where to resist, and how to protest. Now, I do think that there should be an ethics attached to this, but we have to watch our own ethics and be careful not to get more upset about the destruction of property than the destruction of black bodies, and that seems to me to be what's happening over the last few hours, and that's very troublesome to me. We also, I think, have to be very careful about the language that we use to talk about this. I'm not calling these people rioters. I'm calling these uprisings, and I think it's an important distinction to make. This is not a riot. There have been uprisings in major cities and smaller cities around this country for the last year because of the state violence that's been waged against black female and male bodies forever, and I think that's what's important here. I agree with you, Don. We can't ignore the fact that the city's burning, but we need to be talking about why it's burning and not romanticize peace and not romanticize marching as the only way to function. I'm not saying we should be hurting people. I'm not saying we should be killing people, but we do have to understand that resistance looks different ways to different people, and part of what it means to say Black Lives Matter is to assert our right to have rage, righteous rage, and righteous indignation in the face of state violence and extrajudicial killing. Freddie Gray is dead. That's why the city is burning. And let's make that clear. The city's not burning because of these protesters. The city is burning because the police killed Freddie Gray. And that's a distinction we have to make.
I understand what you're saying, and that's nuance. But in all practicality, Van Jones, the city is burning because someone, in essence, set it on fire.
Yeah, you know, this is going to be, I think, a difficult conversation for us to have and work our way through. First of all, there does seem to now be just objectively an evolutionary leap in the street tactics that we're seeing. In Ferguson, you didn't see fires being set apparently strategically to pull the police in this direction, that direction. There's something has changed, and I think we need to be very clear about that and very concerned about that. I take a little bit of exception to my brother
Why
Marc.
so? What do you mean something has changed?
Well, in other words,
what do you mean it's changed? Where do you take exception to Marc?
Sure. Well, listen, you saw a certain set of street tactics in Ferguson, very disciplined, very nonviolent. Once things got beyond that point, it was very localized, very concentrated where you saw the destruction, right there on West Florissant. You didn't see, you know, miles and miles being covered. So this is it looks like an evolutionary leap in terms of how people are taking their outrage to the street. I just think we have to just notice that this is not, what's happening in Baltimore is very different than what you saw happening in Ferguson. So that's, I think, that's an important thing to note. We don't know if all these fires were started by arsonists, maybe some were started you know, other ways, but something has changed. Now, I would say that we can take a moral position and say that there's some kinds of protests that are effective and some kinds that are less effective. There's some that are more desired, some that are not desired. I think it's important for us to say, I don't think that property destruction in poor communities that are trying to come back is a valid form of protest. I don't see any history that shows
Is that where you take issue with what Marc was
anybody.
saying?
Well, I think he was taking more of an agnostic view that we need to sort of give some space for a range of tactics. I would say, I would disagree. I think that we should be trying to show some moral leadership in saying, you know, I keep hearing, you know, riots are the language of the unheard. The reality is, in this situation, voices, at least about police brutality, have been heard. Certainly CNN and other news agencies have been giving space to these voices. So
for hours and hours and hours of coverage daily.
And so again, I think that, again, it's going to be a tough conversation to have, but I want to say, yes, it is true. Dr. King said riots are the language of the unheard. It is, in fact, true and important, and people recognize that the conditions in Baltimore for black teens, according to one study, are worse than conditions for teens in Nigeria. So the outrage should be, of course, about the incredible injustice, both from the police, but also the economic deprivation. And I want to have that conversation. But I do want to be able to draw a line to say that the righteous outrage, we can take a moral position as a part of this movement. Black lives matter, but you know what? Black jobs matter, and black businesses matter, and black neighborhoods matter. And I don't think it's appropriate for us to give any kind of suggestion that the destruction of black communities is a positive or can be positive in this context.
No, and to be clear, I'm not suggesting...
Van Jones. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
I'm not saying that we should see the destruction of black communities as positive. I'm saying that we can't have such a too narrow a conception of what the destruction of black communities mean, and it seems to me that we exhaust all of our moral outrage tonight and not the 364 days before tonight. I think we should be strategic in how we write.
But Mark,